Hello and welcome to Galaxy Advisors. The purpose of this video is to explain Condor 3's main menu at a glance and to give you a macro overview of the entire software. Let's begin with the question, how do you make sense of the Earth's digital activity? If we look at the Earth from space here, it's hard to imagine that 144 billion emails are sent worldwide per day. A billion websites in 2013, and they're doubling every 18 to 24 months. Over a billion Facebook monthly active users, 200 million Twitter monthly active users who tweet some 500 million tweets per day, along with 32 million pages in Wikipedia with 4 million articles. Although we look at the planet Earth here, there's a lot of digital activity going on. Our answer is, how do you make sense of that Earth's digital activity? Well, try Condor 3. Condor 3 is really a software that enables users on their laptops or in the cloud to harvest, visualize, and analyze over time the structure, content, sentiment, and influence of email, websites, Facebook, Twitter, Wikipedia, and more, either individually or in combination around the user's area of interest. Condor 3 strengths: handles gigabytes of data, load 1 million nodes, 20 million edges, process 100,000 nodes, 500,000 edges, visualize 5,000 nodes and 50,000 edges from one or multiple sources. It runs on a Mac, PC, Linux, or in the cloud. It is menu-driven and no programming required. All the complexity of the sophisticated code and so on is just for the user to click on a menu item. Data is easily exported to other software packages for additional analysis, graphing, or mapping. Condor's main menu looks like this. This is a shot of my Amazon workspaces where I've been running Condor for the last several months. Now you can say, well, let's a little closer. Here's a close-up of the 7 menu items. They might look just pretty insignificant: file, fetch, process, view, analyze, and export, and help. However, as you see as we go through today's presentation and video, there's a lot of power and sophistication behind these 7 menu items. Now let's begin with what are some basic Condor 3 menu-driven steps. Although no programming is required, you do have to have some idea of how do you navigate these menus and what kind of order is a familiar pattern. First point is, overall, you use the menu items from left to right. They've kind of been laid out in kind of a logical fashion that you start with the file menu to open or switch to a database, open a particular data set, then fetch some data, either email, Facebook, Twitter, web, Wikipedia, and so on. You can then process the data, filter it, exclude certain actors, and so on. Then you want to view it or visualize it, and then you might want to do some additional analysis or analyze it by domain or specific content or terms. Then finally, you might say, I think I like to export this, either to save it as an additional file, share it with others, or use it in additional programs. And then finally, the 7th menu item, help, is this merely to indicate what version or build number the Condor is. So the overall steps are basically logically from left to right, although you don't have to use those all in that exact order each time. A common piece is that once you fetch data, here I've put a 2 next under the file to indicate that you usually, for every Condor session, you really tap the file icon or the file menu twice. You switch or create a database, which is the first thing that you do. Then you open or create or merge or something else with a data set. So the file is where you go, the first thing that you do when you're using Condor in a Condor session. Then if you've already fetched some data, you can actually jump right to the view here as indicated by the green arrow and visualize it. Now it's important to note that a data set may have one or more data sets of any kind. You could have an email, Facebook, Twitter, web, Wikipedia, or other, all within the same database, or multiple versions or different versions of a data set. So a database can contain any type of this type of data within a database. That's one of the unique universal features of Condor 3, is that it has a generic data format, and it doesn't matter if it's email, Facebook, Twitter, web, Wikipedia, or something else of your own data sets. It can all go into a single database. Now finally, what might say, well, what's a typical sequence might look like? Again, to give you kind of a macro view, rather than you're programming it, you have to say, well, how do I navigate these menus? Well, typical sequence I have found is that you start with the file menu, and you, again, switch or create a new database and then open a data set. Then typically I've done a lot of collecting and I just want to view, so I'll go right to the view menu item. And then I might say, well, I want to kind of eliminate some of the nodes. I might want to calculate some statistics such as betweenness, closeness, or degree, and I'll go back to the process data set. Then I'll go back and view. And I say, oh, I want to eliminate some nodes or filter something else. So go back to the process data set. So you kind of have this iterative view from back and forth between the view and the process, indicated by these two red arrows. Then finally, I might be doing some additional analysis and looking at the domain levels. I want to say, well, how do the edu, com, and so other domains interact, or particular terms? So I might use the Analyze menu. Within the View menu, I might go back then and just say, okay, I want to save these edited data sets, which a little blue icon is going to show up next to a data set once you've changed it or edited it. Most likely you want to save that data set, so you can save it in the when you're viewing it. I might take some screenshots of the visualizations or the graphs that can be calculated and computed and mapped under the view, and I can also export many of these graphs in the View menu. Then finally, I might wish to serve as a backup of something, or export the node and link files, and I can use the Export menu to export the data as common separated variable files. I can export the data set, properties, and a few other items. So this represents kind of a typical sequence that I believe users are going to go through just to give you familiarity. Even though you don't have to program anything here, you really need to know a rough sequence of how to use Condor. And so this is kind of it at a glance. Now, if there's one page that summarizes the menu items, this is it. So this is Condor 3's main menu at a glance. And briefly, let's go through each of these 7. First, the File menu item is used to create and switch databases, create, open, delete, and merge data sets. You can open a data set with a two-stage filtering, which includes the use of a Boolean logic to restrict actors and/or links. You can import or export Condor CDF files, which are Condor data format files. Now this is used to share files with others, to move files between different computers, or to save them as a backup for later reuse. You can import common separated variable CSV node and edge files, and the File menu is also used to exit the program, or just simply as a standard menu item, just click on the red dot in the upper left corner to close it. So the File is really where everything really starts in Condor on the left. And again, as I indicated, you usually touch the File menu twice to begin a session. Second, Fetch. Fetch is where you can fetch your email, Facebook, web, Twitter accounts, Wiki Evolution, and Wikipedia categories. So Fetch is, well, how do I get stuff in? They use the Fetch menu to say, let's go fetch my data. Very powerful way to fetch, with a lot of sophistication to filter and subset what you're specifically fetching. In the third menu item, Process Data Set, along with the View, the next one, are probably the two most sophisticated of the menu items in Condor. Process Data Set enables you to prune, merge, remove, sample, and filter by properties. Very powerful, especially if you're dealing with gigabyte-sized data sets and you want to just say, I just want to take a 1% sample out of my 75,000 nodes that I have. I want to prune these particular ones. I want to merge. I want to remove, so on. Very, very powerful way to subset your data. Process data set also calculates centrality, such as betweenness, closeness, and degree. It also calculates oscillations, a special variable measure called contribution index, turn taking, graph density, sentiment influence measures, which are content measures. Again, Condor handles both content and structure. And finally, the process data set is used to annotate by language and remove all HTML if it happens to be collected in your data. Again, it provides a very global way, multilingual, again, ability to detect what language is in your tweets or in your email or your web collections that you've collected. The next, the view menu, is used to create static or dynamic visualization in word clouds if your data has any type of words or text in it. The view menu is used to plot an actor scatter plot, a contribution index, group centrality measures such as degree, betweenness, and density. It can also calculate an adjacency matrix and graph activity, sentiment, emotionality, complexity, and word usage over time. Condor is not just about static, but also the main powerful is to see the dynamic interaction of your data over time. Finally, the analyze, the fifth menu item is analyze, is used to create or collapse a graph, term graph, or cool people. So in collapsing a graph, you might say, I want to look at my data with all the com domains together and all the edu and so on. So you can collapse a graph by domain and a number of other indices. The sixth menu item is the export. You can export your data as common separated variable files, time series, a MySQL dump as a .sql file, turn taking, and dataset properties. And finally, the seventh and last menu item, help, it just basically provides you with about Condor, what's the version name, release date, and build number. So there you have Condor 3 main menu at a glance. Very powerful, very sophisticated, no programming required, but need to know about what is the capability underneath these very simple word menu choices that you have to make. So coming back, looking at the basics of Condor 3 menu strips again. Again, just to reiterate, the file menu is used the first thing twice that you touch in a Condor session. The fetch is really the second major process. You use the file menu to create most often a new database and a new data set. You fetch your particular email, web, Wikipedia, Facebook, Twitter data that you want, and then you save that data in the MySQL database server. So often people say, where does it go? It's actually saved in the MySQL database server. The third process, it's probably where you'll spend most of your time, is using the file process data view analyze here. I've indicated the file again has a sophisticated two-stage filtering sequence on both that you can filter on actors and or both at the same time links. You can set starting dates. When do you want a bracket, a date range that you're interested in your data, or you want to particularly remove certain actors or groups right from the beginning. So just starting with the file has very powerful filtering capabilities. Then quite often you want to then view it right away, so I indicated that with the red arrow. And then after you viewed it, say, okay, I want to process the data. I want to drop down to the process or over to the process dataset menu, and I want to filter it more, calculate some statistics, go back to view it. So you have a lot of interaction between view and the process. You might then decide to analyze it a little bit more in order to collapsing a graph or term, and then finally optional to export some of your data. So again, these are the three fundamental basic processes that happen over and over again, using the file menu, using fetching the data between file and fetch, and then where you spend most of your time is between the file, process, view, and analyze, and then occasionally exporting your data just to share with other researchers, to save as a backup, or fundamentally to switch to different computers, or to actually take that export and import it into other software for additional analysis. Another important piece of Condor that is new here is the Condor's form wizard. I've located a picture of it in the lower part of the slide. It says Active Wizards. And Condor 3 uses a form wizard, always located in the lower left corner, that when needed, steps the user through a sequence of forms that are needed to complete a task that indicates when Condor is processing a command. So if you have a number of sequential forms, this is going to help you walk you through there. Sometimes an active form may disappear behind the main Condor window. When that happens, to bring the active form to the front, just click on the double window insert there that I have the red arrow pointing to in the Active Wizard, or move the main menu window aside to see the Active Wizard form. So occasionally it gets trapped behind the main window, so just grab the title bar, move it to the side, or double click that little insert window and bring it to the forefront. Now let's go through Condor's main menu again at a glance, menu item by menu item, to give you a little bit more detail of the sophistication and functionality that exists under each one of these. In the file, again, just to recap, is used to manage databases and datasets. You can create and switch databases here at the file. Datasets can be created, opened, deleted, and merged. Condor datasets can be imported and exported using the Condor data format, which has the extension .cdf for transfer to other computers or to share with other Condor users. External network datasets can be imported using CSV, Node, and Edge files. And the File Dataset Open Dataset submenu has a robust two-stage filtering sequence for nodes and edge selection, which includes the use of a Boolean logic to restrict actors and links. Last, the File menu can be used to exit Condor from the File menu, or just again simply clicking the red dot in the upper left corner. Note there is no database delete command here. Users need to use a MySQL command to delete a database, or use another GUI or graphical user interface such as MySQL Workbench, Navicat, or PHP MyAdmin. Here's the Condor. When you click on File, this will be the menu choices that will surface. And again, for the data set, you can have a new, open, delete, or merge. You can create a new database, switch databases, import a data set, which is the CDF. You can import a CSV or export a data set in the Condor data format, or exit the program. In the Fetch menu, again, the Fetch menu enables the user to collect email, Facebook, web, Twitter accounts, Wiki Evolution, and Wikipedia categories. So under the Fetch mailbox, it can use POP or IMAP protocol, secure socket layers, and ability to select individual folders with or without content. Again, collecting content does take more time. However, when you do collect content, you then enable a number of other text analysis such as sentiment and influence measures to be calculated. Fetch Facebook profile menu has the options to collect groups and likes. Collecting groups and likes does take more time, especially if a group has a large number of users. We recommended that to uncheck these two options on the first fetch, just so that it'll finish in a reasonable amount of time. Fetch Web, another powerful option within Condor. The Fetch Web menu offers a search choice of Google Ajax or Google's custom search engine. Now, the Google Custom Search Engine, or CSE, adds the capability to restrict websites which have been crawled in a previous time unit of days, weeks, months, or years. A web query can be limited to a domain level. The Google CSE requires users to obtain a free Google CSE API key, which are in the installation instructions. Fetch Twitter menu has the option of doing repetitive searching with a user-defined delay in minutes or hours. Again, I recommend setting, if you're doing minutes, at least 17 minutes to give it enough time so it won't time out. Query filtering options include the number of results in a geolocation using latitude and longitude coordinates with a user-defined radius in miles or kilometers. The Twitter fetch requires the user to obtain 4 free Twitter API keys. And to obtain geolocations, we recommend gpsvisualizer.com/geocoder. In addition, tweets from a specified Twitter accounts can be collected. So again, if you're interested in Twitter and its content, the Condor Twitter menu option allows you a great range of flexibility. Wiki Evolution menu, one of the most unique aspects of Condor, collects articles that have been linked to one another based upon a user-defined query. Because articles and links are time-stamped, the evolution of a topic can be recreated. Now, I have to emphasize this isn't what they're typing in, actually the article written itself, but the links that were added to the article, and that's what's really being mapped and how they're linked to other articles. Query options include language, choice of seed articles, static fetcher, dynamic fetcher, both static and a dynamic fetcher, bidirectional links, no content, full content, or a snippet. Again, this provides you a way to really understand a topic and how the links have been added over time. Wikipedia categories is another very unique fetching option for Condor. And Wikipedia categories collects a category tree, which helps users to find information even if they don't know what exists or what it's called. Query options include language, category, and depth. For example, see the category emotion. So if you really want to say, well, how is something indexed? What is it? What is the language around this particular category, like emotion? There's actually a hierarchical or tree that's been established in Wikipedia to say, well, this is a branch of this. This is a sub-branch of that. So it gives you a very broad view and very detailed view of where your topic fits within larger categories. So again, at a glance, this is the fetch menu for Condor. The fetch menu, if you click on it, gives you these choices. Again, fetch mailbox, Facebook, web, Twitter, Twitter accounts, Wiki Evolution, and Wikipedia categories. Process dataset. Again, process dataset and view, the next menu item, are two of the most powerful, again, and sophisticated pieces of Condor. The process dataset menu enables you to filter or subset a network by graph pruning using node properties, removing specific nodes, sampling, and node merging either manually or automatically. Now, when you're dealing with large data sets, this is a very, very helpful way to cut it down or to subset it to look at it. The process dataset menu items can be executed before and or after visualizing a data set so that you can jump right to view, go back to process. This process dataset filtering and subsetting, again, are powerful capabilities, especially when working with very large data sets. And even I find with small data sets, you might say, oh, I need to remove specific people here. I want to visualize something by betweenness or by degree, and you do that in process dataset. In addition, the process dataset menu can calculate the dataset's nodes and edges with over 34 calculations that are provided by Condor, which include centralities such as betweenness centrality, closeness centrality, degree centrality, oscillations, the contribution index, turn taking, content measures such as sentiment and influence measures, can also perform our language annotation, which identifies the language of a node or edge data fields. All these values can be used to prune or filter the network and used in graphing to change a node's size, labels, and edge labels. The process dataset menu is optional, but it is often used in an iterative way, as I've described before, with the view menu. For example, by using the file menu to select a database and datasets with the robust two-stage filtering options, users can go directly to the view menu and map a dataset or datasets. Then users may wish to apply more filters to the network and or annotate with one or more of the 34 available measures by using the process dataset graph pruning submenu options. Last, after a dataset is filtered or modified, a blue icon, is indicated here with that little blue circle and eye, will appear in the upper left corner of a selected dataset. Users may wish to save this modified dataset for later reuse. That's in summary our process dataset. Here's a summary of the 34 annotations available to vary a graph's node size and labeling measures. You can see the annotate node measures, the common centrality ones of betweenness centrality weighted, closeness degree weighted, oscillation, which is a special one that has been calculated to look at creativity, a contribution index to look at the number of how someone is active or inactive, or how much they're contributing into the conversation that exists in the network, turn taking, graph density, and our sentiment, or here on content measures of the complexity of the text, the emotionality of the text, the sentiment, a sentiment edge annotations of the top 4 words or values used in that text, top 8 keywords, an emotionality score, a language annotation such as English, German, Italian, and so on, a complexity, how complex is this text, a sentiment score. Influence measures are for both node and edge. Influence nodes are most influential words, average influence per message, messages sent, average sentiment, the total influence for an individual node, and most common words. Influence edge includes influence or other direction, the influence that message has had, the language that's been used, the sentiment words, and keywords. So you can see these 34 measures provide the user with a very comprehensive structure and content way of analyzing your networks. Process data set looks like this, with graph pruning, node merging, sample, remove specific actors, annotate again with those various measures, our language annotation, calculate sentiment, and calculate influence. Typically after you calculate something, you can go right away to the view menu and use those. So after a process data set, calculate sentiment, for example, use the view menu and then select sentiment over time to graph the activity, sentiment, emotionality, and complexity. So here's a graph for that, where red in sentiment, blue in emotionality, green in activity, and black in complexity. And then you also have the chance to export it. Here you might want to take a screenshot of this or export the raw data as well. The view menu, again, one of the more powerful menu items. The view menu is where users create a dataset static or dynamic visualization or word clouds depending upon the data type. Again, you have to have timestamp data here, which is especially in Twitter and email. So using this menu assumes that users have used the file menu to select a database, opened one or more datasets. If users wish, they can use the process dataset menu to filter or subset the data, again before and after a visualization, with one or more of the 34 annotations available. The view menu has selections to create an actor scatter plot, a contribution index, and calculate 3 group centrality measures of degree centrality, between centrality, and density. The selections also include graph of a network's activity, sentiment, and word usage over time. So in essence, you can kind of play a movie and watch how the conversation is changing, or tweets are changing, or email focus of your text. The view menu is complemented with a set of 3 tools to explore and change the appearance of visualizations. They are a graphical user GUI toolbar of 7 tools, which I have in that picture below. A side panel of pick menus to change node and edge attributes for the entire graph, and the ability to right-click on a single node or edge for additional details, labeling options, coloring, measures of a contribution index, activity, or sentiment over time. The GUI toolbar enables you to relay it or refresh a draw of the graph, take a snapshot and send it to the clipboard, show or hide directed edge arrows, so you can show is it one way or 2 ways, zoom in and out using keypad gestures, select and move the whole graph, or pick a single node and reposition it. The search tool will highlight nodes based on a keyword or phrase. An advanced option enables users to selectively color nodes using a CSV node list file. The sidebar pick menus enables the entire graph, node, and edge attributes to be modified by color, size, shape, and labels. Nodes can be collapsed by properties such as content, title, query, domain, and snippet. Depending upon the menu option selection, a legend will be automatically generated. Datasets which have been filtered or modified are flagged with a blue info icon in the upper left-hand corner of the active dataset and can be saved for later reuse. So again, here if you click on View, these will be your choices, static or dynamic. Again, a dynamic, you can actually create a movie of what your data looks like over time. And select, do you want to see it by second, by minute, by a number of different time segments. an actor scatter plot, an adjacency matrix, group centrality measures, activity over time, sentiment over time, and word usage over time. Again, Condor is not just about structure, but structure and content, static and over time. To give you a feel for the graphic controls, Condor 3 has these three GUI or graphic user interface controls. In red there we've seen already the graph toolbar that allows you to relay, take a snap, show arrows, move an entire graph, pick a single node or edge, select text and highlight nodes, advance color nodes with a list. So that's the GUI toolbar. On the right in the blue are node and edge color, shape, and label menus that you can change the color, shape, and labeling of the nodes. The green area in the green box is the graph area. And then actually there's several keypad gestures that enables you to zoom in and out, right click on a node or edge to display the details and label a node. If you hover your cursor over a node to display info in the lower right corner window. So at a glance, these are the three graphical user controls that you use to navigate and around your graph and visualization and annotate it. To view a sample form or create a static view, here you can again use, this is of the Enron email static view. You can also select a dynamic range and say, well, I want to subset this by particular, bracketed by a particular start and end date. I want the unit of interval to be minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or years. I want it with or without a history. Here's a sample here of the Enron in the dynamic view. And then at the green bar here at the below, you can use the dynamic controls at the bottom of the visualization to locate a date, a specific date or time period, play and stop it, slow it down or speed up the animation, and visually watch as the interaction and the conversations have been taking place. The view also has a word cloud, a data slider at the bottom that you can slide by time. It also has controls in the upper right to set the maximum number of words that you want to display and the minimum number of word frequency or threshold that you want as well. To analyze, a menu has a few choices of collapse a graph, term graphs, and cool people. Here's a sample of collapse a graph. We're using this here to collapse by domain. So I have edu, com, us, org, .net, and so on to see what was the interaction among people that had that domain here. And you can also use it for the terms of the dynamic. The term graph, rather than by domain, let's look at the text that's in that content. As well, and we can see the degree to which how these terms are linked in a semantic network as well. The export menu really gives you 5 choices to create an output file of selected network measures and node and edge data. The first is to export a CSV or common separated variable files. Enables users to export a data set of node and edges along with their selected properties into the separate .csv files. Second option, to export a time series, offers the choice to export 1 of 3 measures, between centrality, degree centrality, and closest centrality into a .csv file, which must be designated. The user defines export parameters of a time unit, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or years, a date range, in with or without history. The data set must be timestamped, such as in an email or Twitter. The third export option, to export a MySQL dump, is an export of a data's node and edge field saved as a .sql file, which you can then transport to another computer or re-import back in if you wish. The export turn taking is export a selection of individual actors' turn taking statistics, which are saved as their name.csv into a designated folder. The turn taking fields are source UUID, source name, target UUID, target name, ping senders, mean frame time sender, pings receiver, mean frame time receiver, number of messages, number of frames. The data set must be timestamped, such as in email or Twitter. Now, turn taking said, well, what is turn taking? Turn taking has been used and shown in other research regarding the degree of creativity that's in a particular group, and how often does the turn taking move from team member to team member. Again, it's another measure of looking at the interaction among the team members. Export dataset properties is the fifth one is the export of datasets properties, but they first need to be individually calculated, as it's an important piece to know. Using the process dataset menu options of annotate, centrality annotations, betweenness, weighted, closeness degree, or degree weighted, annotate turn-taking annotations, and or annotate graph density annotations. So that's a summary of the 5 options under export. Again, Condor is in process. There might be others added as we go along, but these are the current 5 that exist today. And here is the export menu: export CSV, export time series, export as MySQL dump, export turn taking, and export dataset properties. Finally, export has a couple of other options there. They're not under the export, but they're under the file menu. You can export a dataset as a .cdf or a Condor data format for transfer to other computers, or to share with other Condor users, or if you wanted to store it offline or some other place as a backup. Under the View menu, Sentiment over time can be export the data as a CSV file, which includes the activity, sentiment, emotionality, complexity, if selected in the sentiment mapper. Again, a couple other ways to export your data out of Condor. In addition, Condor can also save images, graphs, and plots as follows. The GUI toolbar enables users to save a View menu static image to the clipboard by clicking on the camera icon. The View menu, actor scatter plot, contribution index, group centrality measures, activity over time, sentiment over time, and word usage over time all can be saved as a portable networks graphics or .png file by right-clicking on the image when you see those. And finally, to export a dynamic movie as you're playing those movies, users need to use a third-party screen capture tool such as Snapseed Pro or others. So there's nothing built in that's going to capture a video of it. But Snapseed Pro I have used and found it to be an excellent movie capture for Condor. Then finally, the last 7th item is quite simple. Click on it, says Help About. It's going to give you the Condor version and build number. Here it was as September 4th, build 2003, 2014. Well, that's a lot. Condor 3's main menu at a glance, you can see these 7 items might appear to be quite simple, but underneath there's a lot of sophistication, power, and flexibility for you to conduct your gigabyte of data analysis with Condor 3. We hope you enjoy this tour, and good luck with your data analysis visualization.